and welcome to this Altenew Live. A very happy Monday to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm hoping that everyone is doing really well on this Monday evening by me, maybe morning or maybe afternoon for you. It's lovely to see folks jumping in. So thank you so much for joining us today. Hi, Christine. And I see Dilla. I saw a couple of familiar names flash by. Hi, Deborah, in the comments section. So it is wonderful to see folks today. It's great to have you with us. Roxanne is going to be our moderator this evening, and I know that she's already beat me to the punch in saying that if you share tonight's live, while we are live, you can be in for a $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. So all you have to do is share and then post and let us know that you shared and how you shared. And then the lovely Roxanne will take it from there. So it is wonderful to see everyone. It's lovely to be back doing another live. I haven't done one for such a long time. I've been doing a lot of classes lately for Altenew, including one on the stamp set that I want to share with you today. So if you did take the class, the Altenew class on the Build a Flower Honeysuckle set, we're going to be doing more different techniques, but I will definitely start with the wonderful basics of layering things up, and then we'll go from there. So if you're new to this set, this is the Build a Flower Honeysuckle set, and it's a layering stamp set, as you can see. Big, beautiful outline, this large floral motif. And then you've also got a smaller bud in here, and you've got all of the layering steps and some leaves in here too. Now, of course, with layering Altenew stamps, you've got a lot of different possibilities. Here are some of the projects that are in the project folder that come with the stamp, so you can see how gorgeous those are. Just really beautiful. And the honeysuckle, the large image is quite large. And in fact, I'll show you, just like in proportion to my hand, you can see it's a fairly substantial focal, which means that it makes a really wonderful, easy to do card, but you can also do some other techniques with it too. Now, just to show you, here's just a couple of other ideas in the same folder. And of course, Altenew always gives you the layering guide. So as you can see, though, you've got a really nice outline, which means that if you're a coloring kind of person, you like to do a lot of coloring, either with watercolors or colored pencils, that you've got a big, beautiful blossom to do some fun coloring with. And then going along, there's, of course, the coordinating die set. So this makes our world so much easier and gives you even more possibilities when it comes to grouping things, lifting things up with foam tape, and so on. So those are the things that we're going to be playing with this evening. I've got some fun card projects for you. A big hello to everybody that has jumped in that I have not said hello to yet. Teresa, it's good to see you. Sue, it's always good to see you. Jennifer, thanks for sharing. Oh, I see another Sara, another H-less Sara from Slovenia. So welcome everybody, and thank you so much for being here with me today. Alrighty, so I'm going to kind of clear off some of the space here, and I'm going to grab my stamp positioner and my inks, and then we can get going. Okay. Sue says that what great timing. I'm in my craft room now. So that's the best place to be, isn't it? Okay, I'm just going to pop this down. And there you can see my work surface here. So there we go. I'm going to shift that around a little bit. And we can get into our first card project. So with this one, what I wanted to show you is the basics of layering this. So we'll do the stamp the way you're supposed to do it, so with the classic layering. And then I do want to show you a couple of other examples using some other color combinations. So let me brush off some of the cat fur. That's a hazard around my place. and we can get into this. And then I also do want to talk a bit about the stenciling behind here too. All right, so I'm going to grab my stamp positioner, set this to one side, and then we'll just jump right into our stamping. Okay, I'm going to grab a piece of white cardstock. Now, this is not a specialty kind of cardstock. It's just a smooth white cardstock. Your Nina Classic Crest will be great for this. And let's take a look. Let me turn this around the right way. Now, the nice thing about this stamp set too is that you've also got a really nice sentiment. It says, "You are the sweetest." Then there's another one up here that says, "Just for you," really small. And then there's another one, I really like this. It says, "Hello there, you sweet thing." So really fun sentiments on here to go along. And of course, this will coordinate beautifully with whatever other sentiments you happen to have. Okay, so I'm going to start with this large blossom here. And this is, as you can see, or maybe not, it's labeled A1, which we love because then it makes it easier to coordinate A2, and then A3, A4, and A5, and so on. And they've also done some lines around the outside edge here. So it just makes it easier for you to tell which leaf goes with which other leaf part, and so on. So my stamping, I'm going to be using my Obsidian pigment ink, which is my all-time favorite black ink. It needs a refresher. It needs to be replaced, actually, because I use this, you guys know, I use this so often. It's a little bit thirsty. So I may need to do some multiple stamping with this guy, but he's getting a little bit tired. But I'm going to be doing my outline stamping with black. And then I'm going to do my layer stamping with some of these beautiful yellows. So, Vicki, yes, it is the best black ink in the world. I will vouch for that. The other thing, too, is that I heard from one of my Altenew classes last week. I was doing a class, and someone said, you know, they're back in stock. So the Obsidian Black, it was out of stock for a while, and now it is back. So I'm very excited for that. Okay, so I'm going to scoot this up here and position my stamp on here. Now, for my card project, I was doing some die cutting, so I'm not especially bothered with which direction this is going. Just a tip, though, I do find it easier, especially the first time you do a layering stamp. Have your layering guide out and start with the stamp, your stamp, in the same position or the same direction that the stamp is on the layering guide. So you can see here, the stamens are pointing this direction. So if I have it kind of going this way, it can be trickier when I get into lining things up, especially the first time around. So that's my little stamping hack there, is try and start out, especially the first time or the first couple of times that you do your layering, to have things kind of going in the same direction. Just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so I've got my outline stamp on here. I'm going to take my really thirsty black ink pad and ink this up, and then we will go from there. I may have to do this give a second pass, but that will be okay. So stamp this down. I'm going to give it a good press here, and let's see. Oh, it's not too bad. I think it could go with a second pass, so I'm just going to make sure that I've got a little bit more on here. And all right, so here we are with our first image. So those of you who are colorists, if you love to do coloring, you're probably looking at this going, ooh, I could grab my watercolors or my markers or whatever you happen to have on hand and do some really fun coloring techniques. And you are absolutely right. If you want to do your layered stamped coloring, though, here's what you want to do. Grab a couple of your ink colors that are kind of in the same family. So I'm going to go with this yellow family that I've got. I have Sunray, Chamomile, or Chamomile, depends on how you say it, and Snapdragon and Marigold. So these are the ones that I'm going to be using to stamp and layer this. So I'm going to start with my Sunray, which is the lightest of my colors. And I'll start with A2. So conveniently labeled and located within that little marked off area. And position this down. It's a pretty easy stamp to line up, given this nice bold outline on here. Oh, that's a great idea, Christine. She was saying, was thinking to leave the stem uninked and it would make a lovely fairy dress. Christine, you're always thinking. I love your creativity. That's a great idea. Okay, so I've got that positioned here, and we'll start with our lightest Sunray. I really love these yellow colors. They're just beautiful and perfect for springtime, I think. Okay, pop this down here. And there we go. So there's our first layer, easy. And from there, we just keep on going. You guys know the process, but this is a lot of fun. So from our A2, which we've just stamped, then we can move on to A3, which is this funny looking design down here at the bottom. Now this one, I'm going to go for the next darkest color. So the first color was quite light. Then I'm going to go to Chamomile. And again, position this in the same process. And one thing with this layering design, it is really easy to layer. It's fairly intuitive. The one tip that I often give people when you're aligning your floral stamps, always start with orientation in the center of the flower. And that can often help give you an orientation point, and then you can kind of twist and move some and manipulate the rest of the stamp in whatever direction you're going. But the center of this stamp here is a good one to use for orientation. Okay, so this is the Chamomile. And just pop this down. And you can see it's going to give you some of that speckled effect here and this beautiful shading as well. Oh, Pamela just got honeysuckle for your yard. Oh, how beautiful. What color is it, Pamela? I'm curious to know, because I learned that honeysuckle doesn't just come in this kind of golden color. It comes in lots of different colors. And I'll show you some of those that I've stamped later. Okay, and then this A4, this is going to be the next color, and this one I will do with Snapdragon. So Pamela, tell us what color your honeysuckle is. Okay, now with this one, this layer, another good orientation point, where's my little pointer, is this folded over petal, portion of the petal right here. Because this stamp, you can see by looking at this, it just looks a little bit strange. It sometimes can be hard to figure it out. So you go with this blob and you line it up with that folded over petal piece. So, and then again, kind of orient the center and do any adjustments you may need to do. And for this one, I'm going to go with the Snapdragon. So again, it's slightly darker shade. I really like this ink set. It just really is so perfect for florals. Okay, and then again, we've got a beautiful bit of shading on here. And then our next piece is going to be the A5, which looks even weirder. If you're just looking at the stamp set, if you've never done any layering stamps, you'll probably think, what's that? This is going to be one of our finishing touches. Oh, Pamela says they're kind of gold. Ooh, beautiful. Sounds really nice. All righty. Once again, lining this up. And again, I'm working with the center of the flower and that little folded over bit of the petal. And a bit of a scooch factor here. Just kind of shimmy things along just to make sure. And then this last layer will be done with marigold. So the darkest of my 4Z set, if you will. I'm sure that's not the technical name for the Altenew cubes that come in a 4-pack. They probably just call it a 4-pack. Maybe not a 4Z set. That's my own lingo, but I work at home alone, so sometimes I come up with things that nobody else understands. All right, so there is our final layer on this. Now, you have another option too. You've got the end bit here of the flower portion, and you've got a little tiny stamp right here, which will line up with the ends of the stamen here. Now, what I often do with something that is tiny like this, instead of using the stamp positioner, I'll use a block. I just feel like I have a little bit more control. So that's what I'm going to do here. Cordelia says, if you look up woodbine honeysuckle, you can see loads of different color combos. Yeah, definitely. And it's so inspiring too. Sometimes it's just taking a look at some of the real life flowers to really get your inspiration going in terms of stamping and inking. Okay, I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to do this one also with marigold. Now, another option, of course, is if you wanted to use a marker, use a colored pencil to color those in. I'm going to do my best to aim here from the direction that I'm sitting. We'll see how I do. Well, not too good, but it's a little bit trickier to do it when you're sitting down than when you're able to stand up. But I think you get the gist. So then there is our completed flower. Now, there's some other things going on the card and going on the stamp set. So as you can see, I've got my beautiful floral image all layer stamped here. But on this card, I've also got that closed bud. So I want to show that to you. And I'll also show you one of the leaves here. So let's take a look at this bud. And I'm going to stamp that. I'm just going to do it right down here at the bottom of our paper, maybe right here. So we can take a look at this. And this just makes a beautiful layering element for your cards. And this can be stamped alone, and I'll show you an example of that. And it can also be used as part of the background. And I'll show you that too. So once again, I'm going to be stamping up with that obsidian. And I'm going to do it a second time. Poor thirsty obsidian ink pad. It's incredible how much I use this ink pad, and I know lots of you do too. It's just the workhorse of my crafting room. Okay, so I've got my outline here, and then I can go into the rest of the images on here. So that one was E1, and you can see then there we've got E2, which is the flower, and E3 and E4. And then there's also D2 and 3, which will be the leaf area. So let's start with the flower bud. And it's just a little oval shape, which I invariably put down incorrectly the first time. And then I have to do this turning around bit, but that's okay. This one, again, I'm going to do with some of these yellows. So why don't I start this one with, I'll do chamomile to start. This one only has 3 layers. So I can play around with this too if I want this to be darker or if I want it to be lighter or completely different color. That goes as well. That's the fun part. Okay. And then I'll go to E3 and do a slightly darker color and then move over to E4 here. It is a beautiful, beautiful design. Okay. Get this lined up. That one was chamomile. I'll do snapdragon for the next layer. And we'll see this beautiful flower and it come to life so easily too. Okay, and then here's the E4, that funny looking design. That's going to be my third layer on here. And pop this one down as well. And this one I will do again with marigold as my finishing touch. So with your layering stamps, you're going to be doing lightest, slightly darker, and then subsequently darker shades until you get this illusion of depth on your paper, which is the Altenew magic that we all love. All right, so now I've got my flower top and I can go into the stems and the leaves. So again, I'm going to be doing the silhouette layer here. And position this down. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to move aside some of my yellows and bring in my greens. So I've got some favorite greens that I love to do for leaves. Bamboo being one, frayed leaf being another, forest glades, always a favorite, and moss. And moss is a really nice one for kind of the finishing touches. The really shaded area or the shadow area of a leaf works beautifully with moss. So bamboo, frayed leaf, forest glades, and moss are always my green lineup. I'm going to start with bamboo then here. And maybe scoot these a little bit closer here. I see some of you were chatting about dyeing paper. I think that's kind of what I caught out of the corner of my eye, which is long been a favorite crafting technique of mine. I enjoy doing that a lot, aging paper either with tea or with coffee, or I also learned how to do it with vegetables like beets and so on. So I'm not sure if that's what you guys were talking about, but if not, just ignore what I've said. So I've got D2 on here, and then I'll move on to D3, which I will do with a slightly darker color. And I think I'm going to go with the forest glades for this one. Okay, pop this down. And again, you're just kind of following the basic shape of this. Quite easy to do. Onion skins, says Christine. Yeah, make a great yellow dye. You're absolutely right. Maybe I was on the right conversation. I hope so. Okay, this is Forest Glades. And we'll close this up. And there you can see. Okay, so what I want to do is just move aside these magnets so you can really see how beautiful and how easy that is. And then this really simple little blossom down here. And this one, of course, can be die cut. You could die cut the shape out itself. You could die cut it into a square or circle shape and use it as a card focal. This is also just beautiful on its own, but of course you can easily combine the two, which is what I've done here. And I've also got another leaf on here, which I'll show you that too. But you can see I've just die cut them both and layered them both up onto foam tape. So I've got the blossom kind of going out this way. So let's take a look at that leaf. This is a really easy one to layer up as well. And let's see here. There are two leaves on here. You've got one that's kind of it almost looks like a boat shape. There's one up here, and then there's another one here as well. So let's see, I'll do this one down here, which is C2. So here's C1. And where have I put C1? I may have to dig around for C1 here, or we may have to do the other leaf. Okay, C1 has gone somewhere, so I'm going to be using B1 instead. Oh, that's the problem with clear stamps. Okay, so I'll pop this down here. And again, doing my outline with obsidian. Oh yeah, a couple of comments. It looks like a tulip. I thought the very same thing, and I thought that's handy to have it. could also be a tulip. You're exactly right. So some double duty on our honeysuckle. Okay, so let's pop this one back and then go to B2, which will be this silhouette layer here. And I'm going to do this one with bamboo. Pop this down. And I love how easily all of these elements can come together to be a beautiful floral arrangement. Okay, this one I'll do with bamboo. Start with our lightest. And then go to B3, which is over here. So when they're putting the stamps on the stamp set, they have to kind of figure out where elements are going to go. This is why it's really nice to have those lines and the numbers on there so that we know which ones go together, because sometimes leaves, like single leaf stamps, layering stamps, can really all look alike. So this one I'll do with frayed leaf. And we start to see the shading come out here. Okay, frayed leaf on B3. And let me get this put back. And then I have B4 over here. And with this one, let me show you this one with the forest glades. Scooch this into place. And take a look. So it's a really nice, fine and subtle effect, just so pretty. And if you wanted to intensify that in any of these steps, you can always double stamp. You can keep stamping to create even more depth if you wanted to. So lots of options to do with that. Trying to get my stamps back in place. And let me show you once again our original card. So you can see here with this background on here, and I'll show you the background. It's a super simple technique to do, but it really creates a nice background area for this. Now you could simply die cut these pieces, of course, using the coordinating die. We've got all the elements on there, and that just makes it super simple to create something that's got a little bit of lift to it. So they could just be put right onto white cardstock. You can also, of course, do some stenciling. So that's what I want to show you. And I'm using the Flowing Drop stencil, which is one of my all-time favorite stencils, probably ever in the world. I love this stencil because it can kind of go playful and informal. It can also be something that can provide a more formal backdrop. So just depending on how you use it, lots of options for either, using a blending tool, which is what I'm going to be using, or you could do pen work through here. You could do reverse stenciling with it. It's just such a versatile design. And you can tell that mine looks like it needs a bath or something. It's been used and loved quite a lot. So I'm going to pop this down here onto some white cardstock. Now, if you want to, you can always use some stencil tape or low-tack tape to secure things in place. In the interest of our live tonight, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna live life on the edge and just hold it with my hand. And I'll use some bamboo, and I'm using Altenews. I love these brushes. Big blendy brush. Of course, you can use a smaller one as well. This is my favorite. This is my green one, as you can see. I use this for all things green. And I've got another one that I use for all the pinks and oranges. But what I'd love to do in my wildest dreams is have like 10 of them or something, probably more. Okay, so I'm inking this up, and then I'm just going to hold this in place and gently start in a circular motion going around here. Now, what you can do, of course, is intensify the color. You can blend more than one color in. You can certainly add in lighter touch or heavier hand if you want to. And with this stencil being so sort of freewheeling, you don't have to do the entire design. So you can say, you know what, I just want a kind of fun abstract background. And maybe you don't want the entire piece covered, but maybe you just want a little section of it like this, which I think looks really beautiful on its own. You can go vertically or horizontally, and then you can take your die cut pieces. I've got one handy here, and you could simply pop this down. Super duper easy to do, but it does create a really nice and soft background on there. So that's the Flowing Drops stencil, one of my favorites, and I think some of your favorites too. So once I've got all of those elements put together, then I've got a card that can look like this. And I use the sentiment, "You are the sweetest," and just cut that onto a separate piece of cardstock. And I think this would make a really nice and easy thinking of you, or thank you, or you can do it encouragement card as well. Okay, so that is our first card. And I want to show you another twist on this. So I've got another card here with two of the flowers together. And I've used many of the same colors here, but I've done some different layering. So I've skipped some layers. So what I've done, I went ahead because I wasn't sure how long my obsidian would last, and I've stamped the outlines in black. And then I thought we'd take a look at doing some of the color combos with our die stamps. So we can do 2 in one go. And this is an easy stamp set to do like batch making as well. If you're somebody who likes to do a lot of batch making stamps, this will be one of your favorites. Okay, so I'm going to be working with some of the pink colors, and I've got another one in here. Hang on. There we go. Got everything on hand. So I'm going to be working with the Pink Pearl, Coral Berry, Heartbeat, and Vineyard Berry. And then I'm also going to work in some rouge. This is one of the older ink pads. You can tell it's got a different top on it. Rouge is one of those colors that I forget that I have, maybe because it's in a different package. But once I use it, I always think to myself, I need to use that more often. So I'm putting it to use here. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'll do my base layer with Pink Pearl. Ta-da. Okay, pop this down. And then I'm going to skip some layers. And I always like showing this because although we've got wonderful ideas for doing all of the stamping the way the package shows. It's also great fun to see how the flowers look, or really any of the layering stamps, but especially the flowers, when you skip layers, because you can get some really different looks that are also really pretty. Okay, so that's our base layer. And then the next layer I'm going to do is A3, which is this shape here. And I'm going to do that one with coral berry. So again, pop this in place, aligning mostly with that folded over tip. And coral berry, here we come. And although I love using the foursies in the families that they come in, you can also, mix and match those sets too. So you can use a green from one of the green sets with another green from another green set, and really have some fun just exploring different color combinations. Okay, and then A5, which is this last one here. I'm going to do this one with vineyard berry. Okay. This one is always tricky for me to line up. Okay, I think we've got it. Okay, and this one with vineyard berry, which is another nice dark pink. You'll see it. It's another one of my favorites. It's kind of like the moss. It's a strong color. So it's perfect for the finishing touches, like these little speckles. Okay, so there we go. So we've got some spotting and some definition on here. Now, what you can also do, of course, is use that little stamp for the stamen. You can also just simply grab an artist marker. And for this one, I'm using the Forest Glades and just dot in some color. And so I'll show you that after I do the second stamp here. So let's see, this is our first one, all done. And then our second one, I'm going to do the same layers, but with some different colors. Okay, scoot this into place. Okay. Joni, you say these are your favorite colors. You're a pink gal, aren't you? I like the color pink too, especially, this one I'm going to start with rouge, especially for florals. And when people are asking me like, what, I only have a certain amount of a budget, what are the ink colors that I should go with? And I always suggest that you look for something, if you do a lot of floral stamping, to look for something that goes well with floral colors, whether that's a really pretty blue combination or the pinks. And don't forget your greens, because if you have a flower, you generally have a stem or a leaf. And when I was first starting in stamping, I would get all the colors that I really liked, but then sometimes they didn't go together quite as well because I was missing something like a good green. Okay, so that's my rouge. And then the second layer here, the exact same layers as our top flower. This one I'm going to do with Heartbeat. I like this one a lot too. It makes me think of Valentine's Day candy. Maybe that's why I like it so much. It's a beautiful color and it makes me think of food. So we're in a good place there. So take a look. Now you've automatically got some definition and a nice big difference on here between the two of these. And then the third layer, I'm going to do with Vineyard Berry again. Get this lined up. I think. Okay, I think I got that. Okay, and then my Vineyard Berry. Where are you? Okay. And the final piece. So you've got two sort of rounds of some nice dark red color in there. And then just take a look. You can see how different the two of those look. Same process, same layers, skipping some layers in there, but then also just getting a little punch of different color in here. And let me show you with the artist marker. So you've got two tips on here. You have a blunt tip or a wider tip on one end, and you have a narrower tip on the other end. And both of them can be used, both ends can be used to do really detail work. So if you don't want to do all of the innies with the one stamp, if maybe your aim wasn't great like mine wasn't, or maybe you've done a beautiful layered stamp and you get to the end and you're like, it would be Murphy's Law would be the one thing that goes wonky, before you're all completely done. Sometimes a pen can just save you a bit of that angst. So that's what I've done here. You can also, of course, use this to highlight and accent just by retracing some of the movement of the flower as well. So two really different floral looks. And of course, even though it's the same flower, if you tilt it in different directions, it looks completely different too. Now, a couple of other things I want to point out about this. I did some spattering on the background, and for that I used lava rock. And I know you guys have seen me do this splattering technique a bajillion times. Lava rock is one of my favorite colors to do this with. I like doing it with black too, but lava rock is just a little bit softer. So you get a nice dark lava gray in there. And then I've die cut the hello from another one of my favorites, my go-to, the signature words die. So you got hello, thanks, and congrats. But I really like how this can just be a little simple sentiment on there. And you can just pop that down and away you go. Now you can also incorporate it with the stamps the sentiment stamps that are on the stamp set. So the just for you or you are the sweetest, you can combine those with some of your other elements too. So two very different looks I think you can get from this design. Okay, so I've got a couple of other just quick things that I want to show you. And this is one, maybe I'm the only one who loves doing flowers in brown, but I love this vintage effect. I think that a beautiful kind of vintage pattern or like vintage fabric often has this kind of faded sepia tones of flowers. It reminds me of sheets at my grandma's house. So I'm just going to put that out there. It makes me feel nostalgic. But I really like having that as maybe something a little bit subtler. So this one, again, I've stamped it in black. And we'll show you this quickly. It doesn't take very long. Now we know the process of this layering. So you guys are basically experts on this by now. But you see how easy it is. How easy it can be. And with this, I'm going to use some of my brown inks. I'm going to use hazelnut, almond butter, milk chocolate, and dark chocolate. So all the delicious things on one stamp. If you weren't hungry before with the mention of a Valentine's Day candy, then I've just reminded you again. So sorry about that. It's kind of like companies that have fun lipstick names or nail polish names, and then they make you invariably remind you of food, or maybe that's just me. Okay, I'm going to pop this down and we'll start with hazelnut, the lightest color, which I did have for my snack today. I did have a bowl of hazelnuts and they were delicious. So close that up. And at first it kind of seems like, why would why with the brown? But I do really like this as an overall kind of soft and vintagey look. Okay, so my next layer I'm going to do is with the almond butter. Okay, so I've got that one, and get my next layer here. And again, pop this down. And we'll do this with some almond butter. Gives you a slightly different look, which I think is fun. And this is a really dramatic layering possibility in here. Okay, and then our next layer. Oops, I can see that I got off a little bit on here, so we'll see. We'll see if we can kind of cover things up a little bit. I went a little bit off. Okay, the milk chocolate with this one. And you can see my misjudgment right here. So let's see what we can do. Sometimes if I misdo a stamp, then sometimes I don't notice. You don't notice it, or you can kind of cover it up after with subsequent layers. So we'll see how we go here. And the last one I will do with the dark chocolate. Okay. And there we go. So here you can see it's got a nice depth to it, a nice range to it. And so after this, what I would do, of course, is do my die cutting. And I've got a piece that I've already die cut. And from there, I can start placing some elements behind it. So rather than stamping and layering these designs, I can just stamp them right onto my backing piece and then add my die cut flower on top. So here's what I do for this. Kind of figure out where I want my flower to go, which direction I want it pointing, and just set that there. So I'm not gluing it down yet. And then grab some of my outline images. So here's that tulipy looking shape. Christina will forever think of this as the tulip shape. So I can kind of say, okay, I'd like to have that going there. I did find my other leaf. It was stuck to something else, as you can imagine. So maybe I want that to go there. And my other outline, which I put away. There we go. By the end of the evening, I usually have these, after a live, I've got things scattered all over the place. I'm always like, oh, I just want to go to bed and not tidy everything up. But finding all of those clear stamps can sometimes be something you need to do before you go to bed. Okay, so if I want to kind of say, yeah, this looks like a good position, or maybe I sort of want to angle this around and tuck that in a little bit more, I can do that. And then get all of these elements in here. I'm gonna grab all of these, wake up my sleepy obsidian black. Let's see if I can get some more, squeeze some more ink out of this guy. And, oh, you did pretty well there. And then I've got a nice and easy background on here. So then what I can do, scoop these aside. Then what I can do is take my stamp piece and then position this on top so that I'm able to have some elements behind. You can do this up on foam tape, and that will create even more of a layer. And you can also then too even add in more die cut elements if you wanted to. Now with this one too, I'm gonna grab that pen and once again just add some little bits of color here and trace around just to highlight the green on there. Could even go a little bit in the center too to connect that. Make sure I've got my cap on, and then position this on here like so. And then I've got a really nice, easy background. And so that's what I've done for this third card. Scoot that out of the way. And I mounted this onto a craft card base and added some of the gold thread here. Now the thanks is from the signature words, and I've got that incorporated with the stamp from the stamp set. So thanks, you are the sweetest. And again, I think this would just make a really nice and easy card to sort of have on yeah, have on hand if you've got people to thank, or just need to have a quick card on hand. I was laughing a little bit because I saw Pamela's comment. Anyone listening in might think you were baking, not stamping. No, Pamela, no one who knows me will ever think that I am baking or cooking anything. So the only people who would think that are people who truly have just wandered in and they do not know who I am, because cooking and baking are not my fortes. However, when we're talking about milk chocolate, almond butter, and so on, then I definitely am in the kitchen, but it's not to cook. It's to sample. Okay, so once again, I just want to come back to the three different styles that we've got here. So from your kind of tried and true, really beautiful yellow combinations on here, and doing some nice soft stenciling in the background with those classic colors. I just love Altenew for this because it really does make it so easy to create something that looks really stunning, and it's super simple to do. You can see how easy that was. And then into some brighter, bolder pinks, but that you've got two different options if you're skipping layers and you're kind of mixing and matching some of your colors, and you can get some different intensities in here too. And then our third, with experimenting with some vintage brown colors in here, some sepia tones, and then creating some background elements onto our background here. Now, one more card. I think we're just about running out of time, but I did want to show you one other example. It's not a card, actually. It's a tag. And with this tag, I wanted to use that tulip, thank you, Christine, by itself. And so I thought, well, stamp it in black and then do that on watercolor background paper. And then I die cut it into a circle using the halftone circles nesting die, which I love because you've got so many different options and you can fit lots of things in there. And then I have just stamped this. I stamped it with obsidian black, and then I used clear embossing powder on top. So I've clear embossed it, but with black ink, which gives me that beautiful raised effect, makes it super cinchy to do some watercoloring. So for this one, I was using moss and marigold. So show you how easy this is. This is one of my favorite ways to also use the dye-based ink pads. Just get a little bit onto your craft mat. Grab your water brush marker, or a paintbrush will do the trick, and then just paint this in. The more water you use, the lighter the color will be. So you can make it more intense. You can use less water to start with, or you can also go back and add more color to it. Let's see, where's my cloth here? And then let's see, you can do some really simple, just kind of base painting that color in. And you can have a really simple and easy but elegant little flower. So this one I've used on a tag. I'm going to clean this up before I put my hand in it. I used it on a tag, but I want to show you something else with the tag too. And that's that this has been embossed. So do you see the texture on the bottom? So this is from the Flowers and Leaves embossing folder. And I've just got a regular manila tag and then only embossed. I only put it in like part of the way up. So I've got this really nice, simple embossed background on here and then added my flower and then that sentiment, hello there, you sweet thing, and some more of that embroidery thread. So really, really easy to do. Oh, everybody's hungry now. Sorry about that, guys. I hope you have some almond butter and milk chocolate in your kitchen, or at least that chamomile tea. Maybe that's a poor second, but it's all I can offer at this point. Sorry about that. But a lot of fun anyway. So again, let's bring these all in. You can take another look at all of the cool ways that you can use the honeysuckle design. So those of you who have this set, or maybe you took the class already, you know that there's a lot that you can do with these. But if not, I'm super glad that you were able to join me this evening. So I'm going to change the camera again. Hang on. I'm going to. Yes, I will. There we go. And just say a big thank you to everybody for joining us today. You still have a couple of minutes before we will wrap things up. So if you have not shared yet, please feel free to do so. And you may still be in for our $15 gift certificate to the Altenew store. So once again, we were playing with the Build-A-Flower honeysuckle design. Hopefully you can see just how much fun I've been having with this. And those of you who have it, I'm keen to know what you guys are making with it as well. Also the die set that goes along, a couple of other things besides all of my inks that I was using. The signature words dies, super simple, great as a quick and easy sentiment. Sorry. And also the flowing drop stencil, put that to use. The halftone nesting circles, one of my go-tos. And then at the end, the flowers and leaves embossing folder. So lots of fun things that you can mix and match. This will go beautifully with any of your older sets too, some of your sentiments, some of your backgrounds, the stencils, and so on. And that will wrap us up for today. A big thank you to everybody for joining us today. Once again, we're so glad you're here. A big thank you to Roxanne for helping me out this evening and having all of the information to hand. Those of you in the UK, I hope you have a wonderful Jubilee weekend. I have a British friend here in town. She's like, I'm getting the bunting out. I'm ready to celebrate. And for my fellow Americans, I wish you all a very wonderful weekend and also a good Memorial Day. If you've got a veteran or someone in the armed forces in your family, give them a hug. If they're not around anymore, like mine isn't, then you get a hug from me. So do take care, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful start to your week, and I will catch you again next time. Take care, everyone.